more densified form. And so there's water everywhere. It's a part of the cosmos, at least that we can relate to.
The instrument that you use, though, is it moving because of an electromagnetic influence? In other words, what is it that's allowing it to move as a detection instrument when you're above water and you're holding the instrument? What is it that's allowing it to move? What is the phenomenon? Is it science? Is it magnetism? What is it?
It's a good question. Actually, the instrument itself becomes like an antenna to a radio. No radio will work if you have to have an amplifier, you have to have a tuner, and you have to have an antenna and probably other things. But with those three, or any one of those missing, you have pretty poor reception or broadcast. So the instrument acts as a connector to the autonomic nervous system of the person who's doing the dowsing. Our nervous system is very sensitive to water and other things going on in the ethers, or whatever you want to call it, in the atmosphere around us, for unknown distance.
So are we receivers, in effect?
We become a receiver with the instrument itself, but we also become a sender, because with dowsing you go beyond that. You're trying to communicate. You're trying to telepath, like we call telepathic communication. You're trying to communicate with the water underground. You intentionally trying to find a certain kind of water too, whether it's hot water or cold water or water that's moving or water that's still. In other words, you can learn to feel the difference of the activity of water and its behavior underground through this mechanism, this natural mechanism that we have. So we're electronic. We have, our brain waves emit electricity, very small amount of current, but we're electric in nature, and we're magnetic in nature. I could demonstrate with instruments that we have magnetism in our body as well as electricity. So this interconnects us wherever there's electricity or magnetism. It's an interconnecting thing on a very subtle level.
Do you have a way to introduce magnetism by any chance to the audience listening? Because magnetism seems to be a very critical element in well-being for human beings. In fact, the cutting-edge scientists and researchers are aware that there is something critical with our magnetic fields. Can you explain magnetism? Because I don't know how to explain it myself, or help me explain it to the public.
At the basic level, we think about the north and south poles of the Earth and the magnetic flux that's occurring with the Earth. And that also other planetary or celestial bodies also have magnetism. But magnetism at the level that I'm talking about with dowsing is what we call biomagnetism, where it affects the body, a living system. And so magnetism itself has a both attractive and repelling quality. Like poles repel, unlike poles attract. And you can do that with just two magnets. If you hold a north pole and a south pole together, the magnets will click together. They're drawn together. If you put two like poles facing each other, it'll resist. They don't want to connect.
So in fact, dowsing, if I'm listening to you correctly, is a bioorganic process, really,
yes,
of utilizing what we already have that's innate in us physiologically and biologically to tune in to, in this case, the focus is water. Now, I understand in the art and science of dowsing, you can locate other things. You can locate people, you can locate oil, you can locate pretty much whatever you focus on once your faculty is developed enough. I'm sure audiences are wondering, can any of us do it? Or is this just for an expert who's been at it 33 years and worked with a renowned pioneer?
In most cases, any rational, sane person can do it.
I guess I'm out of there. I guess I'm gone from this field.
When I say sane, if a person is demented, be a little more difficult.
I'm back in again. I'm back in. Don't worry, audience. It's going to be okay. Don't worry who's at the helm here.
But and of all ages, it can be seniors, middle-aged, adults, youth, even children can douse. And there are a number of dowsing societies and chapters and groups all over the world where people get together and find out that they can douse. And they're quite thrilled with the discovery they can do it, and they're teaching one another. And there are a lot of amateur dowsers out there.
You know, people have asked me, I've been looking at this lovely pendulum. I've been practicing with it, really refining my intuitive capabilities with it. And some people have asked me, is this like working with a Ouija board? And I said, no, it's not. And I wonder if you could explain how they are distinct, or even if they're in the same realm.
Not really. Ouija board gets more into kind of a magical spirits process. And dowsing, some people claim that they dowse with the aid of spirits, and that's okay because they do good work doing that. I don't. I think if I have a spirit working with me, he hasn't announced himself yet. Or she, or both.
That was a good correction, Bill. You're
okay.
Very, very, very politically correct. I'm proud. Keep going.
Well, anyway, dowsing is what it is. It's using this antenna, this instrument, you develop a system of codes so that certain reactions of the instrument will indicate a yes or a no or an uncertain situation. It'll tell you the intensity of what you're finding. And so what you're really doing is it's like ESP, but not extrasensory perception. It's extended sensory perception. You're extending your senses, and I'm extending my ability to touch at a distance. I know that sounds a little outrageous, but that's exactly what you're doing with dowsing.
Other people have said when you're holding the pendulum, or in your case, is it called orometer?
Orometer.
Orometer. Some people have said, are you projecting your will and your desire into the instrument and thereby magnetically getting it to, go left, right, yes, no? Is that occurring?
It's a very good question. Amateurs, I get a lot of phone calls from all over the world from people who say, why am I having trouble? It was working for a while, now it's not working anymore. Or what am I doing wrong? And usually that is true, that sometimes they're projecting their will. You cannot intellectualize an intuitive or a feeling thing. You can get the two to work together. And so the whole idea of it is to trust your intuition, your feeling side, let the intuition work, which is connected to higher mind, noetic mind, if you will, which then will allow information on another plane of knowing to come through to guide you to achieve what you're trying to do. But if you get in the way of that and you try to get your intellect to dominate the intuition, you're in trouble. The intellect sets up the program, the intuition finds it, and then relays it back for the intellect to process it, to evaluate it.
I guess the bottom line is this. You are stating today on radio that you can professionally locate primary water, a universe of water that most people in the world don't know about, aren't using, don't know how to find, and make water into perpetuity available to anybody in the world who needs it.
Yes, there are enormous quantities of primary water coming up from the underground in wells that I've located 20, 30 years ago, and my mentor before me 40 years ago, 50 or 60 years ago. These are still running. They have wonderful perpetuity because it's a new source of water and it's not dependent on rainfall. Here's the whole idea. When they say all water comes from the atmosphere or from rainfall, the engineers and what they teach in college, this is not entirely true. It's true that this does happen, but not all water. And the problem with it is that if that was the case when the Earth was first formed, where did the oceans come from before there was an atmosphere to rain down onto the Earth? So this is chemistry that made the oceans.
That's a great question. That's a very, very good point.
That's what made the oceans and the ponds and the lakes and the rivers and so on. And so we're talking about, and they call this fossilized water because of earthquake action over the years and upheavals of the Earth. Water has been trapped underground. So there is such a thing as fossilized water, which came from early sources. We're getting water the same way the Earth got the water back millions of years ago, hundreds of millions of years ago, through volcanoes. Volcanoes spew out carbon dioxide, and were the things that do create clouds and so on, which will rain down on the Earth. So volcanoes are a good source of moisture for the atmosphere.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back with its rainmaking time and Bill Cox on a special segment on primary water. Ladies and gentlemen,